The propaganda's a win, stress feeding on my tension. My countrymen, they love their fiction. Words upon now, it's made with good intentions.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to one of 200, your friendly local New Zealand politics, media, current events podcast. You are here with your host. My name is Philip. Hello, nice to meet you. We also have a second host by the name of John. How are you, sir?
I have so many slurs.
Oh, wow. I think that was...
In your basement?
Binders of slurs.
Binders full of slurs. We also have, as you may have picked up, a Simone. How are you, Simone?
Hi, I'm not allowed to make cum jokes anymore. This place is a prison.
This place is a prison. These people aren't your friends, etc. Sorry,
Welcome to your unfriendly host.
we're
Simone.
millennials. Okay, as you may have picked up, there will be slurring in probably both senses of the word this morning in your friendly local current events podcast. But let's start off with what's probably, I guess, the biggest local politics story, which is the, what do we say, contretemps disagreement over basic facts between Winston Peters. Simone's making a very accurate joking motion at me, which you cannot see because it's an audio medium.
Which I'm not allowed to make verbally.
Winston Peters released emails to the Herald in response to an OIA request that his office had sent to the PM's office after the Iran war started. This is during that period, that famous short period during which Chris Luxon uttered the inimitable phrase, "I don't know how to be any clearer, guys," which is literally correct, and that's the problem. And from context clues, it seems very clear that Christopher Luxon had wanted to be much more positioned with Australia and Canada, who at the time were full-throatedly supporting the disastrous, illegal, immoral war in Iran by the US and Israel. Genocidal, let's throw that in as well, which, interestingly, side note, since then, Australia and Canada have both kind of pulled back aspects of their support. So Luxon showing his fantastic political instincts as usual, siding with the worst possible position at the time. And it seems that Winston and his staff, senior kind of MFAT official, and John Johansson and Winston all said that was a bad idea and would be counter to New Zealand's interests, which is quite strong phrasing, and released it. And Luxon's claiming they misrepresented his position but hasn't released his own email, so there's no reason to believe that. Okay, let's go. Is this good? Is this bad? Who are the winners and losers, John, from this week in let's call it a stoush. Let's go full cross-party lines on this shit.
It's a good story in that it's kind of, how can I put it? It's an OIA. Like, Luxon going, you should have told me about it. I was like, and what? You're going to prevent the release of those emails? There's no fucking reason for that whatsoever. But it's like, you should have told me that you were going to release the emails. And it's like, okay. But what was amazing about it was when the story broke, it was Luxon having called Winston into his office for a dressing down, which, sure, yeah, that's the thing that happens in real life. And him going, yeah, Winston accepts he made a mistake. And I'm like, no, never. That has never happened in New Zealand history. Winston Peters does not make mistakes. He has only failed by people around him. But the mistake is a very narrow thing. The mistake is not telling Luxon's office. The mistake isn't Winston going, look, some of us actually have experience in judgment and know what they're fucking doing, which, again, you know, Winston's office is approached about these emails and he goes, well, you know, some of us are a bit more experienced than others. And you just go, the problem is, rare occasion, Winston's right. Like, Winston did the correct thing here in, like, pulling back his dilettante, like, barely there prime minister and going, no, this is a really bad fucking idea, Chris, don't do this. The fact that it's come out and it's like, as you said, they've misrepresented my position. It's like, oh, so what is your position? Oh, okay, then that clears everything up.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, yeah, I love that the response to the New Zealand government, which, as every government apparently these days has to do, promised to be the most transparent in New Zealand history. The response to them actually fucking responding to an OIA request for once and releasing something to the
transparency.
media. Yeah, right. Is saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, this has been a terrible mistake." You have Nicola Willis on the putting the offensive and charm offensive. You know, saying Winston's acknowledged he made a mistake, but as John said, like the quote unquote acknowledgement is saying I should have warned Luxon before releasing this exact information. Like, what are you talking about, right? It is
Willis
quite.
Willis did worse. Willis did worse because she linked it back to her whole Winston's going to do a deal with
She
Labour
linked it back
line
to her what?
no cum jokes, no cum jokes. But she linked it back to the line that obviously Simeon Brown really wants to get out there at this point, which is Winston's going to do a deal with Labour because she was like, oh, well, Winston must have been confused when he didn't tell the office. Maybe he'll be confused and do a deal with Labour. And it's just like, shut the fuck up, Nicola. Shut the fuck up. Okay? Like trying to crowbar this in, or, this government is so lacking in kind of charisma or any way to make this seem like it matters. But it's just they're going, ooh, he's a confused old man. And I'm like, as I have said in on the Discord, we are now locked into a future where unfortunately National and New Zealand First do retain power at the next election. But Winston gets himself appointed finance minister specifically to fuck with Nicola Willis. That is the future, unfortunately, we are laving into existence here because Willis did not know when to shut the fuck up.
I feel like the funniest possible outcome would be both National and Labour ruling out New Zealand first, and then just forming a minority government.
I mean,
Either of them.
there has been an article, I think it was Liam Dan wrote an article that's been, referenced a few times, but I think to be fair to hand it to Liam Dan, I don't think he was like treating it as seriously as people talking about in his article have been talking about a grand coalition, which we've obviously talked about for years. And people seem to only reference in order to say that it's never going to happen. But it would be very funny if Labour and National were both to rule out a party which immediately would probably get like 15% in that case, right? Like that's perfect conditions for Winston. Oh, you both ruled me out? Well, that's easy. He
I'm
can.
the outsider. Yeah.
I mean, you know who hasn't ruled out forming a
The
coalition?
Greens.
Well, I mean, Labour, National haven't ruled out making a coalition with Labour, and New Zealand First have. So
It's true.
who's the real cucks to the right?
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a real what was the original Grand Coalition? Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, something like that, trying to gut Social Security
yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
just
we're gonna
just before the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke. That's what they were gonna do.
well, Kyle's grand dream of an ex-Labour
Kyle's grand dream is of a united Yugoslavia. Let's not kid ourselves.
leave it
the
in
biggest Albania on record.
Return with a veto.
They're calling it Greater Albania.
Autochthonous Albania. Oh my God. Yeah, we're making Albania into the new Israel.
Oh no. Kyle's gonna be so mad. I've said so many
A
bad things about
united
Kyle.
Orthodox Albania. 26 plus 6 equals 1. I don't know.
Oh
how
my
many
God,
provinces are in
I just
Albania.
remembered seeing something this week, which is the current UK ambassador to the US has apparently been quoted as telling some Americans in a group thing when they were asked him about the special relationship. He goes, yeah, the UK doesn't have a special relationship with the US. They've only got one with Israel these days. And I was just like, holy shit.
Wow.
Mr. Ambassador, with these treats, you're spoiling us.
That is really saying the quiet part.
Honestly, Harry, it is not shocking, I don't think, to hear that Luxon was pro-war because he is instinctively. Who was saying this? That he is just instinctively pro-war and pro-Trump, right? Without question. This guy is an avatar of capital in this country, and therefore, like whatever is wanted by the American stock market, Luxon just kind of he knows, like his antennae perk up. I know he doesn't have any hair, but he's got antennae that perk up, and then he just like divines the right direction to go with respect to the S&P 500.
Yeah, the smoothness of his head correlates to the smoothness of his brain.
He perfectly reflects the Starlink signals.
Mm.
He's
Yeah.
subservient to a larger big business daddy in Trump. That's how this works. It's like,
Trump is
he
his
will.
CEO.
Yeah, he's that's it. He's not in the C-suite in world politics. You know what I mean? Like he's the middle manager who really wants to be there, but he keeps like tripping over his feet and stuff and spilling coffee on the desk, and everyone's just like, "Eesh."
That's actually maybe the most accurate like description, like potentially, deep psychoanalysis of Luxon's position that I've ever heard. It's like
I'm looking forward to hearing this uncredited in a spin-off article in 2
Oh, yeah.
weeks.
We see you, Joel.
Because
We
that
know
seems
who
to
you
be
are.
happening constantly.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean
Or Henry Cook or something. Henry Cook, credit me, motherfucker.
we know you listen. But yeah, I mean he's still a middle manager, right? He's just failed upwards, like you said. And like psychologically he's still in that position and he needs a boss who gives him direction. And at this point, that's Trump. So Trump points in a direction and says, the next quarter is going to be all about whatever bullshit he's going to say, and Luxon's going to antennae / reflect that through his head particles. But yeah, I mean, this is. I don't know if it goes as deep as even ideology, but like it is a difference between the way that Winston Peters sees the world and the way that Luxon sees the world, I guess, right? Is that Winston Peters has even through his like whiskey and cigarette soaked leathery hide, has the memory of like New Zealand having some kind of independence from the US. Not on Palestine, apparently, but on the rest of the world. He's whatever the opposite of progressive except on Palestine means. Yeah, it's interesting, I think, that he would like both push back and then make it public. Again, like this is election year. He's timed his deputy prime ministership as you would expect Winston Peters to, and then threaten to collapse the government every week until the election, which, commentators are going to, I think, make this a big deal, this being like the coherence of the government until the election. I don't think that's the biggest story. Like, I think the biggest story is that the Prime Minister personally has a different position on like world economy destroying war than the New Zealand government does. Because the New Zealand government has the position that Peters outlined, which is like the neither confirm nor deny of, country positions of we don't support it, we acknowledge it, whatever the fuck that means.
Hold on though, but this has been a Luxon problem the whole time, which is we know that his personal beliefs fundamentally contradict what his government does, which means he doesn't actually believe in anything he's doing in government, and that disconnect between what he actually thinks inside his head and what he's reflecting off his head from the Starlink signals are so obviously out of sync that people are looking at him going, but what are you? Like, do you actually believe in anything at all? Or is it just, the position of my government is my position is the position of the government? And it's like, yeah, but that's not true. And we know that's not true because we know what you think about abortion and we know what you think about all these other things too. So, like the thing about Winston is that he is a nationalist, and that means he actually has a good sense of national interest. And Chris Luxon is a capitalist, and all he cares about is line go up, even though for his own ratings and the economy and many other things, line definitely does not go up at the minute. But it's this, he doesn't believe in anything, and it's quite obvious. And whereas his two coalition partners definitely believe in something, they're both terrible, but at least they believe it. You know what I mean? Like, not handing it to David Seymour, that's your job, Philip, or to Winston Peters, but they do have an ideology. It's a coherent one that is horrible, and in Seymour's case is the antithesis of the libertarianism he claims, but at least they believe in something, whereas Luxon is a nothing man. He's a big empty space. If you have enough of the communication stuff to get away with kind of just reflecting back at people what they want to see in their leader, like, say, John Key did, then that works. But if you are like just a sucking void of middle management, then all people look at him and just go, "Oh God, you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of that fucking guy at work. He's that guy."
Oh, absolutely.
Chris Luxon is the man who wasn't there, right? Like, you could be Labour and run, you shouldn't, but you could run ads that are just like, who's that Pokemon with an empty outlining? It's like, who's Christopher Luxon? The reason why they could do articles, a year into but this present government saying, well, perhaps New Zealanders need to get to know Christopher Luxon, is that the more you stare into the void, the deeper it goes, right? It's exactly what you're saying. I do agree, actually. David Seymour has consistent ideology. It's not what he says it is, but his consistent ideology is in favor of apartheid because he's a racist. And I think what's kind of interesting is this is rather reminiscent to me of, and some really old heads will know this, there's a Tom Scott cartoon, a rather lame one, which means it's a Tom Scott cartoon from 1994, where he shows Ruth Richardson being like beamed up back to the mothership saying, "My work here is done." And in some ways, I feel like the end of Christopher Luxon's tenure will be exactly that, just being beamed back to the mothership, because this man is an alien in New Zealand, right? Not in the sense of like, oh, he's foreign to our, values or something like that. He just doesn't even intersect at all with humanity.
Shall we quickly hit a couple of good news bills? Let's call this good new bill section of the podcast. Maybe we need a jingle for that, Kyle. Sort it out. Good new bill. Good news, Bill. Something like this.
Jingle, right?
Shut up, Simone. Drug overdose amendment bill has passed its first reading. The Drug Overdose Assistance Protection Amendment Bill passed its first reading in Parliament. The Green Party says it's an important step forward, ensuring that no one hesitates to call for help in a medical emergency. The bill will provide protection from prosecution for low-level drug offences for people who call for emergency help during an overdose. Around 3 New Zealanders die each week from treatable accidental overdoses. Evidence shows that fear of legal consequences can delay or stop people from seeking urgent medical care. And it passed because, despite protestations from National and New Zealand First, Kahu Carter from the Green Party got ACT to support the first reading, which is always a good sign from a first-term MP getting a party from across the aisle, as they say, even though aisles are a bit of an outdated way of thinking about the New Zealand Party, the New Zealand Parliament these days, getting them to support you. It's a very pro-Sue Bradford-ass move to get the opposition to support something that is genuinely cool and a specific improvement to legislation. So I thought it was worth noting.
Yeah, major credit to Kahurangi Carter, actually. I did just want to point out that it was pointed out it was rare. I think somebody in ACT said, it wasn't ACT or somewhere else that said,
Todd Stevenson, psychopath.
Yeah, that's right.
Noted psychopath Todd Stevenson.
He was like, it's not really common, actually, to have first-term MPs be able to get members' bills over the line. So, I mean, major props, really. And one to watch if we're going to be one of those kind of podcasts.
Yeah, no, cool move.
It's fantastic that, it's a pro-health bill. It's a pro-health bill. It will likely, it's kind of a pro-cop bill in a way, in that it'll mean that they're not doing this work, which is great, because then they can carry on doing claiming hours that they didn't actually work, apparently, if you read the news today. Or having liaisons in hotel rooms if you're a former commissioner. But ACT do really well here, but immediately ACT, kind of being the ultimate centrist, decide to fuck around on a separate bill, which is the modern slavery bill has finally got enough backbenchers using Standing Order 288 to get it over the line. So it doesn't go through the ballot process. If you get 61 backbench MPs to sign up for a bill, you can get it over the line. And Greg Fleming and Camilla Bellich have both worked their asses off, got the numbers, because Brooke Van Velden disbanded the Modern Slavery Working Group and said it's not a priority of this government to stop slavery. So at the same time, they're like, yeah, sure, like, let's not prosecute people who maybe have had overdoses, etc. But slavery's fine, which is, again, true centrism. It's ensuring that,
We're finally trying it.
Yeah, true centrism is being tried with the acting government. And it turns out it's, Grand Coalition stuff, National and Labour working together to get all the backbench MPs on board. Also, there was another one came out this week. The virginity testing bill has come out of the biscuit tin as well, which is, another member's bill, but also one which is good. It is a good law. It will be a good thing if it gets done. It's certainly better than a lot of the shit that's come out of that tin recently. But, there are some good bills out there. There are some good things happening that, again, cross-party lines, not the podcast. Is that a podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gone by Lunchtime, whatever the fuck it's called. Like there are some good bills happening in Parliament, and hopefully they'll be carried on for the rest of this term and through to next term as well. So, yay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do want to point out some of the opposition to this, right? Because it's rather telling. Not that anybody here would vote for New Zealand First, but Casey Costello coming out, former cop Casey Costello, which was integral, as it turns out, in the Emma Aitken panel case, because they were like, well, a cop wouldn't lie about something. She wrote it down in her notebook, just like when she was a cop, which, lol, as a criminal defense lawyer, lol, like...
Can we not just put a piece of paper on her desk saying these bills are good, actually? And that will mean that she'll completely change her position. Isn't that how it works?
That's exactly right.
In crayon.
I have to point out, New Zealand First's opposition to this, led by Casey Costello, has been, well, does this not impugn police officers? Because if we should rely on their discretion, that when they are, if emergency services are called and attending somebody who has an overdose, that they won't arrest that person and charge them with a crime. This was also repeated by Sam Uffindell in National. I would like to drill into this very, very slightly because it is easily refuted. If your concern is that you're taking away police discretion, but you think in every case where somebody is having an overdose and shouldn't fear prosecution, the police shouldn't prosecute, you don't think they should exercise that discretion, unless what you think is sometimes people should live in fear of prosecution for greening out on the couch. So what you are saying is you actually think that people should be prosecuted. You just don't want to say it. Otherwise, the police don't need discretion and it ought to be taken away.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That is I agree. That's a masterclass. And discretion is bad, is only there. In 90% of these cases, the word discretion is the softest possible phrase to use for racism. And, we've talked about this for years on the podcast, is that calling something discretion is a nice sounding word, right? I think it's the pro tough on crime lobby in New Zealand has got away with this for many, many years, saying that police should have discretion. And discretion is a nice sounding word, right? But as Simone says, just to, really rub this in, is that if cops use discretion to decide in which cases to prosecute a situation like this, then that means there will be a systematic decision being made about when the law applies and when it doesn't, right? And I don't know, maybe I'm too spectrum, but I feel like if the law's there, it should exist, right? I don't know, is that too existential? Yeah, but as Simone says, that implies that there will be situations, even in this very niche, like I think quite intelligently written kind of carve out, in this specific situation, you do think some people should be prosecuted for this, right? So tell us what those are. Have the courage of your convictions and say, no, I think this person should be should be charged for the crime of saying, I'm going to die unless I get medical help. And which people are those, Sam Uffendale, before you bash me over the head with the strength of your argument wrapped in a bed leg, tell me what the fuck you're talking about. I think it's cowardly, right? Like, at least say you think, obviously, poor, brown, young, insert your minority of choice here, people are the people who are going to be fucking, prosecuted for this. Then, it's incoherent, right? It's absolute cowardice, and should be recognized as such.
More importantly,
Look,
sorry.
Someone go for it.
More importantly, firstly, research tells us who this discretion is used against. And we're not just spitballing or being like, woke lefties or something by saying this, but it is exactly the people that Philip was talking about. Predominantly Maori, but also young Pacifica men, right? And also, this is somewhat under-discussed, but Black people in New Zealand, who are a much smaller percentage of the population than, say, like in the United States, actually do face systematic discrimination in ways that we just don't talk about, right? This is also true. And I think it's important to note that this is something that's found consistently, even in like relatively hostile to any sort of change organizations, like the IPCA essentially has admitted this many times, that police just target certain groups, right? In this case, what you are saying is not actually about the prosecution or not. It's that if the discretion is hanging over somebody's head, especially if their experience with the police and being in an over-police community is that the police don't represent safety for you, they represent families being torn apart, and they represent people being beaten and brutalized, which is true of many different areas, especially urban areas of this country. Places like in South Auckland, for example, or on K Road, for example, much more recently with our street whānau. What you are saying is those people should fear it enough that the penalty for taking drugs or overdosing on them ought to be death. This is a form of social murder. This is a form of eugenics. This is why National is in favor of it. And this is why New Zealand First is in favor of it. Mostly just because the cop bootlickers. I'm rather surprised, actually, that ACT has taken a libertarian stance on this. I do have to say, because this is an effective form of cleansing, right? But perhaps it's just too marginal for them to care about. Or perhaps it's just the magic of Kahurangi Kata. But I do have to say, that is what you are saying when you say police ought to have discretion. That is the outcome that you want to happen, because that is what the bill addresses explicitly.
It is, zoom out from this and you've got National and New Zealand First going, look, it's not up to Parliament to make laws for the police to follow. And it's like that's what they're saying. They're saying we can't tell the police what to do. That's illegal. And you're just like, oh no, that's the whole fucking point. You're the for people who kind of are the law and order party, they certainly don't want to make any fucking law, but they do want order. But the order only comes through the fear.
Yeah.
As Simone said, it comes through that fear. And so actually legislating it, putting it down in print, oh, we couldn't do that. Why? Well, because that takes all the fun out of it. It makes it harder to drive people off the street if the police are like, oh, actually, no, I'm not allowed to do that. Not that that has ever fucking stopped them anyway
Yeah.
in the past. So,
Yeah, bang on. I mean, yeah, and as Simone said, like the IPCA know this, right? And have had multiple reports showing that there's systematic bias. And what you do if you maintain quote unquote discretion for these crimes is you continue that problem, right? You basically say, look, the police know there's a systematic inequity in the way that they address different issues, and we're fine with that. That's good, actually. I mean, very brief digression. I was a landscaper for years and drove as part of a company, and I drove a banged up old Toyota that was basically, a walking cop magnet. Like, if I was a cop, I would have pulled me over. I drove it for 2 years. This thing that was like almost about to break down any second looked like I just, probably ripped it off and smashed it up. I hadn't. It was a $500 car that I bought off a friend, but didn't get pulled over for 2 years driving this thing around, right? For those listening to this audio medium, I'm a white guy. I'm a young white.
What?
I know. I'm so sorry.
You're not young anymore.
This is true. This is an out of date anecdote. But then I was working with this Zimbabwean dude, and him sitting in the front seats with me had me pulled over 3 times in the space of a few months. Like every month, pretty much, we would get pulled over. And one time, I asked the cop, was I speeding? What's going on here? And he said, oh, just nothing, just checking in. Just seeing if everything's, checking on if everything's going on the up and up. And after the cop left, I said to my mate who was in the front seat with me, does this always happen to you, man? And he was like, ever since I've been in New Zealand, which was years, he was like, I get pulled over every month. Like, this is just how I live my life. It's normal to me. Like, I'm like being bothered by cops is just a part of my routine existence. And I was like, wow, this is an insight for I was probably like 22, 23-year-old white dude who grew up with obviously like aesthetic privilege in this fucking country.
Yeah, being pretty.
Oh, that's a
Yeah, like
different
aesthetic
issue.
privilege. I was just like, such a handsome young man. The old ladies love to pinch my cheeks,
Yeah. Anyway, deranged. Like you can't kind of see the other side of that, and that's police discretion, right? That is choosing based on just how someone looks, and how they kind of you just look at someone and go, oh. This, what? This person who decided to call the cops is good, and this person who decided to call the cops is bad for the exact same situation. And, we've got enough data to know when it gets used and when it doesn't. Sorry for the brief derailment. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, I think this is worth, I know we have further topics to get to, but I think it is worth talking about, really. It's also worth noting that, perhaps to a lesser extent here than in some countries, but paramedics are sometimes kind of cops. Like, it might be that you just called the ambulance, but you never know what will happen after that, right? The other thing is, and I think we ought to devote an episode to this perhaps, is I have noticed, and I've asked other people if they've noticed this, if they deal with a lot of street whānau or they're in the CBD a lot, and are not just going to their job and working, if they have any sort of connection to that sort of world, whether or not they've noticed an uptick in basically the police being psycho. Like, this is something that I have noticed is an increase in brutalizations, that I have clients who come to me who have they have like clean records. Sometimes they're white, Pākehā, right? And they will, we'll have our usual plea discussions. They'll say to me, hey, I don't know if I should mention this, but, and it felt pretty bad. Like, when I was being arrested, they pushed me into the mattress at the station and put their knee on my neck and like broke my wrists. And I had to go to the doctor and I had them set and stuff like that. And will show me their injuries. And I'm like, I mean, yes, you can go to the IPCA about that. Not that it will do a huge amount, but it's concerning to me that this has happened several times. right? This is not something that I noticed before in practice, especially not. It used to be the case that if you were like well known as somebody who was homeless, or the police were hot for you because you had, a criminal list as long as my arm, right? Because they were annoyed by you, you're a nuisance offender, that sort of thing, right? That used to be the case. That's always been the case. But this is new. And I was wondering about it for some time, what has caused this? Because I also think I have noticed people talking about certain people in their organizations, their bosses, for example, becoming feeling more emboldened to be fascist in petty interpersonal ways, or with respect to the hierarchy of their jobs. And I was speaking with a friend about this when we were spitballing, and he said, I wonder if it is that the general fascist turn globally, or rather in the first world, quote unquote, in the Anglophone world and elsewhere in Europe, and with Trump being really emboldened, has made these people unconsciously perhaps, or perhaps downstream of material changes in the law in this country, feel more emboldened to act in these ways. This has happened conversely at the same time as I think the police have started recruiting more from migrant communities, from particular ethnic groups that are not, just the traditional either Pākehā or Māori cops, right? And there's a kind of, it's not, I don't think, contradictory at all, right? And we can get into that discussion, which we shouldn't do now. But it is interesting to note that I think there has been a reasonable uptick. And I would be curious to see if there's any research happening at the moment on brutalizations, because I think a lot of it is going unrecorded, like a considerable amount, it seems to me, based on my eyes and ears on the street.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're probably right. Yeah, like you said, let's address that in another episode. But we should dig into that a bit. I definitely haven't seen that in the kind of crime stories, and it should be.
But it's just concerning because that's what discretion means, right? Like the more latitude that you give.
Yeah, it's latitude, right? That's a better word than discretion, actually. Is like giving latitude for application of the law on a cruel basis. But to move on, okay. Another thing that happened, not this week, but a year ago, is Nicola Willis had a pre-budget event at her office last year. Maiki Sherman from Off of the TV allegedly called Lloyd Burr a homophobic slur. Okay, this has stirred the press gallery because they love stories about themselves despite pretending that they don't. Barry Soper has been saying Chris Hipkins used to host journalists when he was Prime Minister, as he would. And hilariously, Barry Soper also said the same homophobic slur on the radio when he was describing the event, which is always a pro move. Mike Hosking said TVNZ sent some kind of legal letter to News Talk ZB to discourage them from talking about it. But, there's no legal reason that they could have to shut down that conversation. So, being told not to talk about it is always the biggest story, right? It's a very Sean Plunkett move to say, I'm not allowed to talk about this thing. Send me your money, send me your ad clicks. It was a story broken by enemy of the podcast, Annie O'Brien, on her Substack. She works for the campaign company, is on the board of the Free Speech Union, used to work for Judith Collins, spends most of her time bullying trans people online. Okay, are slurs good? Are they bad? Simone, give us the definitive answer, please.
Slurs are unlockable content, I've discovered, because some were not available to me that are now available to me, having gone through some major life changes, like converting to Catholicism. No, that's not true. But...
Protestant is not a slur, Simone.
Yeah, Catholics be like Catholics be like, pedophiles is our word. You can't say it. No,
it's you.
It is. It's unlockable content. What I'm looking to do is to find, much like Judith Collins, a someone partner, so I can unlock more. No. But it is worth considering. We're gonna do philosophy right here and now. It's to do with your standpoint, something episteme, something. I don't know, gender relations. Anyway, that's the deal with slurs. I don't want to make Mitch bleep stuff.
Do it. He's lazy. Make him work for his minimum wage.
I oftentimes think this sounds really weird. I think sometimes of an Ella Yerman joke, which is, as a male-bodied woman, suck my male woman dick. And I think that's a really good joke. And I put it in an essay once.
That's very good.
I'm speaking for, Mitch, let's have some fun. Speaking from the perspective of a I reckon this is a year old. This is obviously coming out because of particular reasons, like the fact that National is what, like attacking TVNZ, that there is this kind of classic, Trumpian attack on the media at the moment. This is just an attempt at that, right? Like, this is not heartbreaking news. And frankly, wasn't there some suggestion that Maiki Sherman had said it in response to like a racial slur from the person who was speaking to her? As like you can't say it just like, this, by way of example. It's kind of like a situation, or it could be a situation where it's like, well, the N-word was in the rap song that I was singing, or like I was telling you that it's bad to say it, which again, I don't believe is acceptable. I want to say officially the official position of 1 of 200, never acceptable to say that, which is why we didn't say it and Mitch doesn't have to bleep it. However, journalists are not people. Sorry, New Zealand reporters are not people. I just want to clarify that. There are journalists in many countries who are people who are under attack and under threat. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's very clear. Thanks for the yes or no answer.
Like,
what I would say to you is
slurs are sometimes useful, funny, effective, depending on whether or not you have unlocked the content, as Simone has said. But if you look at this Maiki Sherman story, it is in direct relation to Simeon Brown placing a complaint about her banging on Simon Court's office door, asking him to comment about the Luxon leadership stuff.
Yep.
That happened 2 days before Angarad O'Brien decided to post her shit. Okay? And now that's either coordinated or it's just her being a pick-me transphobe. Being like, I found a way to attack this brown woman because I love supporting women with my transphobia. That's what this is about. It's just about she's seen the opportunity to dig up a story that's a year old. And the reason why this has not gone on further, Maiki Sherman has been suspended from Parliament for 5 days for banging on Simon Court's door. There have been no consequences of this incident in Nicola Willis's office because Lloyd Burr did not want to take it any further. And Lloyd Burr's employers do not want to take it any further. And Maiki Sherman and TVNZ do not want to take it any further. Okay? But this has become a story that it's just been, let's get the political editor of TVNZ this week. Why? Well, because for the last month or so, her reporting has been doing things like pointing at the government and going, these guys suck. The polls say these guys suck. They keep making all these mistakes. Christopher Luxon is out of his depth. And all of these aren't opinions, they are material facts. And it just appears that Simeon Brown's Facebook posting and putting a complaint into TVNZ and to the speaker just kind of gave some of those right-wing outriders, because they all are right-wing outriders who promote the stuff, the opportunity to go, well, I heard this story from a year ago. And this is kind of it's a very British journalist thing where there's an incident and somebody then goes, oh yeah, I've known about this thing for a year, but I didn't report it last year. And it's like, why wasn't that reported last year? Is it because everyone involved was just like, okay, this makes us all look bad. Let's not talk about it. But for Annie O'Brien's, it doesn't matter because she already is so terrible as a human being that she doesn't mind making other people look bad because they still look better compared to her.
Yeah, and I mean, just to continue the idea that slurs are unlockable content, John is actually allowed to say the B word British because he comes from that diaspora. I'm not allowed to say it. Sorry if we had to bleep that. But yeah, it is like it's that kind of like small, yeah, very like locked in mentality of reporting, right? And yeah, there's a reason that Annie O'Brien's the person to break the story. It's because she's the Cam Slater of 2026. Like, sorry, Cam, I know you just followed our podcast, but you're out of date, bro. Retire. Yeah, there's a new.
Sorry, I need to start the podcast here. Like, did you just say British with the hard R?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
British. Cam Slater needs to retire in the way that replicants get retired.
Get his ass. Yeah. It's sick shit, right? We're just doing dirty politics round whatever. Does that mean that the content of the, strategically timed leak is good or bad? No, it doesn't, right? That's a separate conversation. In the same way as Winston talking about, to go full circle, Winston talking about pushing back on Christopher Luxon, thinking that the war crime of attacking Iran is bad, the content of that can be completely separated from the process by which it came out, right? And different people have different interests when it comes to how these things come out. And of course, Simeon Brown has Annie O'Brien on the phone, right? And we're going to see more of this, obviously, over the next 6 months, you know?
He has to reach tippy toes to grab the phone off the hook.
It's one of those Fisher Price. It's one of the Fisher Price rotary
It's
dial
a
phones
Fisher
with the
Price
smiley
on-
face and the wheels.
There is a real sense that Simeon Brown is just like calling for mummy sort of thing, which is, this is actually exactly like British reporters, because in the UK, or at least, English reporters, they're all like, the third son of an aristocratic family used to become a priest because it was like the heir, the spare, and then the useless one who's really dumb that you never really educated properly. And that's in the UK now. You become a reporter if you're the third son of, like, if you're a Wallerbridge or like something else who's, a hyphenated surname, right?
The late great Dawn Foster with her fantastic quote, which is, "If I've heard of your dad, I don't need to hear of you," and that works for every man apart from Jesus.
It's so good.
Uh,
We had Dawn on, RIP. We had Dawn on early in the days. Absolute champion. Yeah.
Nice. It is true that, in the UK the reporters are essentially kind of, this comes, I think, perhaps downstream of maybe like a boarding school culture or something. It comes from somewhere, perhaps just, the ingrained class hierarchy. Like England is just one big boarding school in a sense, right? Where it's like, mummy, headmaster, I've seen something
It's
I shouldn't have.
Hogwarts. That's why it's so transphobic.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be an uptick in Hogwarts in that country with the way the NHS is going. I do think, I do think that this is
Very
a
good.
culture which we don't need to import into New Zealand, right? And any instances, and of course it comes from the turf, right? Because it comes from Turf Island. I think we need to cut this out root and branch. We need to absolutely just like yank this agapanthus out, salt the earth, right? We don't need any of this anymore. I don't need Annie O'Brien whinging, to some imagined higher power. Also, did you say Simon Court earlier?
Yeah. He
Like,
misspoke. He meant Stuart Smith.
noted
Stuart.
user of AI to yassify himself Simon Court. Simon, honey, it's called Facetune.
It's called estrogen, darling. Just do it.
It's just the world's perfect skincare routine. It's like estrogen and progesterone, and then like cold water on the face. That's it.
1 of 200 beauty tips here, Carol. Come on.
We're gonna do an after dark stream with Stephanie talking about how to get the perfect smoky eye, and it's when I put mascara on and then just fall asleep.
It worked. Yeah. I mean,
Woo.
I think part of what I find funny about this story is that you can tell that every kind of establishment media outlet desperately wants to talk more about it, but also wants to feel too good for it. Like, there's that, like the id of the New Zealand media psychology is very much like, we want to talk about ourselves, actually. Like, isn't
Did
this
you see Duncan Garner's take on it?
No, hit me.
Duncan Garner did a whole thing about the media covered up for Maiki Sherman, but they pursued me, and I was like, Duncan, you drove disqualified, and I believe you may have also been drinking. Like, you fundamentally committed a crime. And he was like, yeah, they didn't cover for me, and I'm like, yeah, I wonder why.
The bloody media keep coming for Duncan Gunner, purely just because he keeps committing crimes and also is a terrible human to work
What's the
with.
crime? A
Yeah.
crime? A perfect succulent crime?
What's the
That's-
crime? Fumbling Mickey Forbes? Yes.
Genuinely, yes, Duncan.
Yes,
bad
that is.
job.
Also, I didn't know that Maiki Sherman was gay. Maiki, hello.
Yeah, a succulent
She's
drink
very
driving
well dressed,
incident.
I do have to say. The journalist thing we can work on. You can quit your job for me, honey.
Wow, Simone, putting it out there. 1 of 200 isn't just a dating vector, right, Simone?
Is it just, yeah.
Two
Join
things
the
can be true.
surfer for
Yeah.
some more tips.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, we're done with slurs. They're in the past.
Slurs have been ticked off. Do slurs is ticked off my to-do list for the week. Thank you, 1 of 200. Okay, but maybe I don't know. Maybe last. Let's see how we go. I thought it's worth talking about, what is becoming a routine event on the world stage is another assassination, an ineffective assassination attempt on our favorite American president by default, because there's only one. That's how America works. Assassination attempt number 3. This dude allegedly stormed a security checkpoint at the Washington Hilton Hotel where the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner was being held, fired a shotgun outside the doors leading into the ballroom where the US President, First Lady, and several cabinet members were already seated and the event was getting underway. Prosecutors allege he intended to target Trump, citing an email he allegedly sent to relatives on the night of the shooting in which he appears to refer to Trump as a traitor and a criminal. The email does not mention Trump by name, but refers to targeting administration officials from the top down. American media reporting he sent an anti-Trump manifesto to family prior to the shooting in which he describes himself as a friendly federal assassin. He's friendly, so I mean, I don't know.
Your
I feel like
friendly
they should,
neighborhood assassin.
yeah, that should weigh into the. In October 2024, he donated 25 American dollars to Act Blue. American dollars, which I think at this rate in New Zealand is about $50,000.
Just under that, actually, unfortunately, as somebody who has to deal with that exchange all the time.
Okay, bad news. A political action committee that raises funds for Democrats earmarked for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in 2025. The American nonprofit policy research organization, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CRIS, reported for the first time in more than 30 years that quote-unquote left-wing terrorist attacks outnumber those from the right. For the first time in more than 30 years, according to one nonprofit policy research organization. Yeah, I mean, violence. Now that we've covered whether slurs are good, is violence good or is it bad? John, what do you think?
I mean, you have missed out the most important bit about this alleged assassin is that he had a Blue Sky account and was apparently incredibly centrist as well. Like he didn't like Hassan Piker. He was still with her. You know,
true radical centrism is being tried.
Yeah, it's a guy like finishing his job, getting kids ready to take elite schools testing on a Friday, and getting a train across the country, and then Naruto running through a checkpoint. I've seen the video. Like my man is nearly like full on arms behind him, like Area 51. We're coming. No one can stop us all. Like, I just, as a former teacher myself, I have had weeks like that where you just need to take the edge off by murdering the president.
If only more people could be like you.
The wine isn't working anymore, and you're just like, fine. I guess we're going to do some political violence.
A weapons.
3 benzos and half a bottle of Merlot deep, and you're like, well... staring longingly at the AK in the corner.
Just sat watching a Jodie Foster movie going, I really could impress her.
Really? After all, why shouldn't I? Holding the Glock up.
I mean, it was the same hotel Reagan got shot at, I believe.
Yes, yay!
It is. It's the hotel from the amazing edit of Reagan getting shot to the King of the Hill theme.
I need to find out which hotel, because you may or may not know that CPAC is held at something called the Gaylord National Convention Center.
Wow.
Which I've been to.
It won't be this year because Hungary's no longer funding it.
They're all going to go Hungary. It is worth considering. No, actually, I didn't have a smart political point. I'm still laughing about this. This is such a good thing. Why can't somebody just practice aiming once? I don't know.
Yeah, America, so many guns, so much target
practice. Why are they
practice.
so bad at this? They shouldn't have. You know what? I am actually now pro gun control in America, because you shouldn't have them if you're not good at using them.
Now, the story about this guy is also that he wasn't taken down by the agents. He ran through the thing, he tripped over a box and hit the deck. And then they all jumped on him. Like, this man was not tackled by agents.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't. He did something brave. I shouldn't laugh. Like, I shouldn't laugh.
The fact that Trump also lost 2 points in a poll conducted after the shooting, after the attempted assassination, it's just like, how do you like survive an assassination and become less popular?
Why is he protected by Hitler time travel rules? I don't understand. There were like 30 assassinations of Hitler or something, right? Like attempted ones. There were 30 assassinations. He's not Jesus, so he doesn't come back to life. But Trump, we're going to hit similar numbers, I feel like, unless he dies first. But there's so much coagulated, like, burger in his veins that I feel like it's kind of keeping him alive, kind of like a homunculus or something. He's being animated by somebody.
I mean, Yeah, on the specific like assassination point, it's bizarre that people keep kind of tripping over their dicks and missing him and being bad at shoot. You know, this is a country that's like psychotically filled with guns and where what I don't know what the rate is these days, but every day some kids are getting shot, right? They love to get shot in America
Yeah.
and they love to not change the laws and ensure that that continues to happen. Like this is we have to assume at this point part of the world they want to live in is just shooting each other and shooting themselves. And you know, the vast number of preventable suicides that occur by gun in the United States is, I think, like a massively undercovered story. But for some reason, like the highest profile, most evil guy in the country, who literally millions of people in the United States think is a disaster and like killing people every day, they for some reason can't get rid of. And you know, not to put too fine a point on it, like I don't think that assassination is a good political tactic. In case anyone wants to like misread me, but shut up, John.
Boo!
Boo,
Boo
just
this man.
sorry. Unpopular centrist point, I'm sorry. But yeah, like I just it is surprising, right? This guy is in public sometimes. Like what is going on here that these people what you don't know how rifling works? Like you don't know how to aim? What is happening
What
here?
we need to do is get the most hated weapon in American history, the Carcano rifle, from the FBI headquarters out of an evidence locker and be like, it's time, Nessie. One more ride. Do it
It's
for
just
me.
it's
It's either that
embarrassing.
or we need somebody. Like I said, there's a guy in
The
Wyoming somewhere
Carcano rifle
building
being
the
like, I'm coming out of retirement for one last job.
God.
So what
helicopter
were you
landing
saying,
on the
John?
lawn at Langley. I was just thinking, there's a guy in Wyoming somewhere building the American doohickey. You
Yeah.
know, he's out
Yeah.
there. And because Kyle's not here, I've got to take this point, which is the worst thing about this assassination is not the attempted assassination or that it failed. It's that it happened in a room full of journalists who are now desperately going, I could have been killed. We need to turn down the rhetoric. And just, it's like, no, no, you all chose to go to the Nazi celebration to celebrate the Nazi. He was going to give a speech, like having a go at all of you, and you're like, "Yes, this is fine. I want to do this."
Yeah.
And you know the language after this. Well, you know the Democrats need to turn down their temperature. The way they talk about the president is obviously inspiring this, and it's just like I think the way he's speaking is inspiring this. You know, like man's threatening to end a civilization, and it's just like just people are kind of taking that as threatening, not you know fucking Chuck Schumer going, well, it's maybe.
Chuck Schumer saying Trump always chickens out. Like, do it, bro. Do it. Do it, pussy. You won't do it. Like, what? This is the guy encouraging Trump.
Yeah, and it's just
Good
the
point.
fact it was a room full of journalists. You immediately watch them all be like, "Oh, I'm now a serious journalist because I survived the assassination attempt," and it's just like, shut the fuck up, man.
In a way,
Here's
I'm
what
a
you do.
wartime
Here's what you do if
journalist
you're a
now.
journalist. You take a gun with you, so you all have guns. Somebody runs into the room, it becomes a John Woo movie. You're all pulling them out of your like suit jackets.
There's doves flying in
This
slow
stuff is
motion.
just
Yeah.
being released.
I was about to say like a thousand doves fly by for no reason.
It's hard boiled suddenly. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
It's good that like I don't think it's been like over covered yet, but this will become a fucking narrative that like, you know, quote unquote left wing violence. We had quite a painful kind of story from Gillespie, the Waikato law professor. I don't know if he's a professor. Law guy saying that you know the pendulum of violence is swinging back and the left is committing more violence or whatever. Which, you know, other than this one study I've seen referenced, the CRIS study, there's no evidence for. And you know, both the degree and damage, if you want to, I mean, even damage is an imprecise term, but like the amount of people hurt in quote unquote left wing inspired violence is always less than the amount of people hurt in quote unquote right wing inspired violence. We've talked about this on the podcast a lot before. Go back to our notoriously unpopular post Christchurch episodes if you want to lose friends and alienate people and hear my unpopular takes from that time. But I just think like looking at ideology when it comes to these like very specific events is such an imprecise way of thinking about them that it almost does more harm than good.
Look, we have not seen a rise in left wing violence of this sort since June 1941 and the beginning of Operation Barbarossa.
Yeah, disgusting, right?
Like, I cannot believe the escalation over the next few years of left-wing violence from the Red Army
Dunkirk,
was
our October 7.
Yeah.
but it's like
Wow.
it's always it's left-wing
Put
violence.
it on a
It's like
t-shirt.
goose meme against who?
Yeah.
Who are they being violence against? Like where is the violence going? Oh no, it's just happening.
I don't want to talk about the violence, political violence, but I do want to note that, like, you can't call these examples of left-wing political violence. These are centrists, which in America are right-wingers, right? On the international scale, like these pro-democrat people are right-wing. They just think that there should be like ordinary social murder through health insurance rather than, actual interpersonal attacks by ICE agents.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth noting the left, genuinely, I think pretty much everyone is like, way too careful about this, like extremely careful. People are like, making meetings feel important by taking the batteries out of their phones before they go. Like, like they're not doing this sort of thing. The left is not violent at all. I'm not saying it ought to become more. I do think there is a place for self-defense in the manner of the Black Panthers, but and I also have to agree for legal reasons with Philip that propaganda of the deed isn't actually very effective, but sometimes it's very funny, much like with Abe Shinzo,
Yeah, I'm also going to say yes. Political assassinations are not good.
Well, yeah, the enthusiasm on John's
look, I've
face.
said
he's
it.
running. He's running.
He's
I've
running.
said it. Yeah, arms out behind me.
He's Naruto running for the Greens. That's the episode title, baby.
That's very good. Yeah, that's very good, Simone. Yeah, I mean, is there even anything to read into this? I mean, next time somebody unsuccessfully attempts to assassinate Donald Trump, which, as you referenced, when it comes to Shinzo Abe, we only have to be lucky once. And yet, when it comes to Trump, we have to be lucky 1,000 times. Like, there's the incompetence of this fucking country. Like, I don't know. I feel like five determined Chinese people would have got it done by now. There's just something in something in the water in the United States that under-fluoridated or something. It's just not working for them.
Was it Francis Fukuyama? Has anyone seen the video going around about him saying that American democracy is dying, but China's model seems to be the future? And I'm like, if Francie Fox is going, look, America, it's the end of America. Like we are entering a beautiful new Chinese century, everybody.
Wow.
I have only seen the memes of him like holding a gun saying "End history. I am no longer asking." And things like that.
Maybe it'll be him. I mean,
maybe it'll be Francis Fukuyama.
Maybe he will end history by assassinating the president.
My
of the United
man
States.
has totally redeemed himself now.
What an arc!
What an arc! He's like he's the Paul. He's the Peter Dow of historical analysis.
Every time it nearly happens, and everybody starts scolding people who are just enjoying a little bit, like just borrowing a bit of that when it happens joy. It's that, look, the world's on fire. If it's not happening, then just allow us to have fun at it not happening. You've got to look at it and go, damn it, nearly. And I work with a lot of normal people, and most of them came in going, God damn it, can they just not shoot straight over there? And you're just like, these are people who vote Labour. These are normies. And they are just like, God damn it, man, these Americans can't kill their own president. And it's just like, what the fuck?
He's so unpopular, even not just here, not just Australia, and not just everywhere else in the world, but like in America, he's so unpopular. And I think everybody is like waiting for the day when it happens so that they can have the best time ever online, right? Like that's kind of just to say that politics has been reduced. There's probably something about postmodernism and like everything, it's just performance and whatever it is, right? I don't want to get into that stupidity, but there is something about the fact that you are not doing something. If people decry this and say it's decorum and civility, there's clearly not something undemocratic about killing Trump. It's clearly the pro-democratic move. Not that I endorse it. I am not endorsing democracy. But if you wanted to go with what is in favor of the will of the people, it's pretty clear what the will of the people is here.
I would like to see that polled actually. I haven't seen a poll. I would like to see like an
Like
Ipsos.
if you could push a button and Donald Trump
Yeah.
died right now, I would love to see that poll.
We're doing red button, blue button, but it's should Trump be alive?
That's not unsatisfying. If you could push a button and Trump died in a really funny way, that's how we
Ooh,
should
okay.
phrase it.
Yeah, okay. Adding a frisson. Yeah, okay. I like
We
it.
got to wrap up, I think.
Yeah, we got to wrap. We got to wrap. I'm sorry, we've gone way too long. Okay, let's wrap. Any final notes? I don't have anything. I feel like we've probably gone on too long already. I can only apologize for pouring our hearts out for you for free. Follow us, like us, click the buttons that mean that you get notifications when we do stuff. Give us $1 on Patreon. We really appreciate it. And much love to all our longtime patrons. You mean that we can continue to edit our nonsense into something that's vaguely listenable. And when we meet, I will buy you a beer. And I love you very much.
Give me a
John, do you
dollar
have
on
any-
the street when you see me.
Oh, man.
I could use $1.
Simone needs a different form of payment, and we all know what that is.
What?
Yeah, I think
Dude, we talked about this. We're not making those jokes on the podcast anymore.
Mikey Sherman, call me.
see, this is the form of payment that Simone. All right, John, any final words from you?
No, like this has been a delight as always.
Oh, how cute. Simone, take us out. And try
Top 10
not to-
episode. Top 10 episode. I have
Jesus.
to say.
Jesus.
I haven't
Get out
done
of-
any of my voice training this episode. That's okay. It's been too good.
Simone's DMs are about to be more full than she can handle, and it's fine.
Mikey's got 5 days off from Parliament.
That's right. How do you
Hey.
want to spend that? If not,
Not
go
going
to
to
a
Singapore with the
Stardome
PM,
up there.
apparently.
There's they're running some specials at Auckland Art Gallery.
Wow.
You like art?
All right. Peace. Thank you very much. That's been another episode 10200. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
If artifice is art, then I'm living a pointless life, but learning all your lessons. Fucking politics, there's no distinction. The road's upon now. It's paved with good intentions, and I'll admit that I'm at a loss for what to say when they criticism it cost me ought to stay. 'Cause I live amongst the people every day. In this vindictive, forgetful fucking rain, it feels like we're on the road to hell.